So, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, wherever you are. I'm here in my house, and David's there in his house. So I'm here in Dublin. David's in Germany. David Reynolds has been, well, David and I have kind of been in contact probably for the last year and a half about.
Yeah, about that.
We got in contact because I saw David posting about his long distance achievements from anywhere from 500 miles right out to 1,000 miles in Barcelona last year. Amazing to be getting towards our Barcelona 1,000 miles. David is in Germany. He's in the far north of Germany. He's going to tell you a little bit more about that himself in a minute. So David and I have something in the pipeline that we'll come to at the end. So up to that point, we're going to do a little talk about David, his experiences, where he is, the usual stuff everybody talks about, and we're going to try and get a different insight into it. We're going to really try and get a feel for how David operates with his boards and what makes him tick. Okay, so David, I suppose start off. You may as well introduce yourself. Tell us exactly where you are in loft location, so that people get a feel of it, and what kind of situation is around you in the racing scene, i.e. National racing. How far do you have to travel with your boards for marking for the bigger distances? I know you and I have had a conversation around this, but just to let everybody have a feel of what challenges you have before you even put a board in a basket for the bigger races. Never mind your local races. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, David Reynolds, as Michael said, living in Germany now, but from 18 to 40. I was in the British forces, travelled all over the world, including Germany, lived in Germany for a little while, ended up with a German wife here in the far north of Germany on the Baltic coast. Basically, Poland is about 3/4 of an hour from me. So I'm on the Polish border, very far north. So it's very countrified, not many big towns. So, and pigeon racing, it's big, but long distance pigeon racing is not big. And the reason long distance pigeon racing is not good is because we have to travel so far to set the birds in. We have, over the past 5 or 6 years, set up a small long distance club here so we can race from France. But now, from there, we are only getting, I say we're only getting, but we're only getting 550 to 620 miles of racing, which is not what I'm looking for. I want to do the marathon. I do marathon racing, which means, as Michael has mentioned, to Barcelona from Barcelona to me, 1,000 miles. This is an extreme big ask, but I'm convinced that the birds can do it and will do it and have done it. But in order to send to these international races, the first big hurdle I've got is get to the marking station. Now, I've heard this in the UK as well. If you live in the far north of the UK, you've got to travel down a bit in order to mark your birds. I have to travel nearly as far as the birds. It's about miles, about 400 miles one way to mark the birds. So it's an overnight job. I take the birds in there, mark the birds overnight in a hotel, and then drive back the next day. So it's quite a big challenge. But if you want to do the internationals, there is no other choice. I have to do it. So there you go, Michael. That's the basic insight as to why, how that I do with my birds.
That in itself alone, to want to compete at that level. I mean, so I actually appreciate where you're coming from, because there's a massive cost factor in that. So we're the same here in Ireland who want to race the bigger races, the longer UK national races, if you want to call them that, with the BICC, for example, which is what I've kind of organised here as a group. And we had the logistical problem of getting boards to marking because we have to get them to the UK. And we have problems then with cost factors. So if you're doing it on your own, you're looking at €500. So probably something similar to what you're looking at per international marketing scene. And then so we have set up a group. I have set up a group to do that, as we all know. So David, I saw on Facebook there last week a video of some of the boards that had performed this year for you. So maybe give us a little bit of a rundown of, I know you do your build-up races of 150 to 350, and then they get a couple of weeks rest before they go to their designated race of 500 plus miles. So maybe give us a little bit of information on your boardage you've sent to these 500 plus races this year, what kind of returns you've had, and what kind of time frame you're talking about getting them back, and kind of maybe some of your highlights of your section Fed results, whatever way you have them.
Okay, yeah. Well, this year was quite a good year, I have to say. I do the build-up, as Michael said. So they've raced out to about maximum 300 miles. Some of them don't even get the 300 miles before the first race, and it starts very early. It's only 4 weeks into my season. I have to stop them for the 2 week rest. Once the 2 weeks rest over, we're off on this 550 mile first race. It's in France, or from France to me, 550 miles. And this year I sent 16 to the first race. No, that's wrong, 18 to the first race. Sent 18 to the first race. Everything that I thought was capable of doing it, there was 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, up to 4-year-olds. Sent 18, got 18, all back. The first one was back 9:20 in the evening. Let out at 6 o'clock, I think it was in the morning, and 9:20 in the evening. The first bird on the. Some of you may have seen the video as she landed. So good start to the season. I was quite impressed with that. Quite pleased with that. Second race, a little bit further, 580, Paris. It's a nice race to do because we have a lot of Polish competitors as well. So the birdage goes up. There was probably, I think, about 3,000 birds there with the Polish ones together. Like I said, nearly 600, so 580 miles to me. I reduced the sending. I only sent 12, got 12 back. One was very late. One took 6 days. The rest of them, they were all there the next morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Started the first one 6:21, then 6:40, then 8 o'clock. The next morning they were virtually all there, so I had them all back for that. Then we go back to the same race point, the first race point again. There, 550, sent 16, got 16. Quite lucky this year, I have to say. They have come really, really well. They've raced well. That was a little bit better. There was a couple on the first day as well, and the rest coming the next morning. Of course, there is always the stragglers. You know, I did get 16 back, but sometimes 1 or 2 lag behind. For example, my 82, which you'll probably see later, he came, I think it was 5 days later. And when he came in the loft, instead of a blue bar, he looked like a green bar. He was just completely covered in green slime from drinking in ponds and whatever. So, yeah, I stopped him. Little story about that later. And then came the big one for me. I did an 805-mile race, national race from Brive. Only sent 5. It's a bit different when you start thinking about 800 miles to 600 miles. It might only sound like 200 miles, but 200 miles to a pigeon is quite a lot after you've already done 600. So I sent 5, didn't get them all back. Sent 5, got 4 back. It took them, the first pigeon was back in the early hours of the fourth day. The fourth day, yeah. And then a couple of hours later, the next one was there, I think it was. And then 6th day, and the last one was a week. But the good thing about them coming back then is they came back and they weren't too far under. You know, a lot of pigeons will come back after doing 600 or 500 and they're spits, no meat. But these were in good condition, really good condition. I could have, a week later, I could have sent them again. I didn't, but I could have done. And then the last race for me is London, 600 miles. Sent 16, got 15. And only 14 after a few days. The first one was back next morning. He raced fantastic, absolutely fantastic. He was back the next morning at 6 something in the morning. Great race for him. One of them overshot, went 40 miles wrong past me and ended up in Poland. She's now back, and one is missing. So
how do you know she went 40 miles past? How do you know she went 40 miles past?
I got her reported 40 miles away, and she was there on the Sunday morning. So she would have done it in race time, but missed me. So shame, but there you go.
So all in there, if I'm listening correctly, you've lost 4 boards this year.
Yeah.
You have a team of roughly 40 pigeons you're working with.
Yeah, I've got about 40 birds, but I would say this year off the long distance, I've only used 20 birds.
Right, okay.
The others have all been at home, or they're too young, or they're not quite right. So.
And what kind of results are you achieving with those birds now, coming in your section and in your overall fed?
Okay, my first race in the section, I was 5th and 6th section at 550. From Paris, I was second. Yeah, 2nd and 4th. A few other ones as well in the top 10. I've always got a couple of birds in the top 10. The 3rd race, I think I won the section. London result is still out. It's terrible in Germany. If you think you've got a problem in England and Ireland with pride, to come to Germany. We still haven't got a result from London. We're, what are we, 2 weeks nearly?
2 weeks later.
No result.
2 weeks later, I was watching.
Yeah. But I'll be pretty high up in the section there.
And so give us a little bit. You mentioned there about you were racing. You were in the UK. Your armed forces, and you were in the UK growing up in that. Did you race in the UK, or how did that go, or what got you interested? I suppose at the start.
Interest was just as a young boy, 14 years old. My uncle in Essex, Southend in Essex. I'm an Essex boy. He got 6 white doves, and I thought first of all they were very pretty, but when he said to me, in 6 weeks' time, I'm going to let them out and they're going to fly around and they're going to come back, I thought that's just not possible. So went back to see him. I was only 11 at the time, I think, when I first saw them. He let them out, of course, and they all flew away and never came back. But that's another story. It just got me interested. I just started going around people's lofts. I used to see pigeons flying around. I'd go and knock on the door. You know what you're like when you're a young lad. Yeah. Knock on the door. Can I have a look at your pigeons, please, mister? And and met a few people. And they allowed me to go there on Saturdays when race day, and that blew my mind. It really blew my mind. It had nothing to do with winning the races or anything. It was just seeing these birds come back after they've, they would say to me, "Oh, he's gone 100 miles or 150 miles," and that was, to me, how can they do that? And it just went from there. I was hooked. But of course, my dad did build me a loft. I was a bad boy as a young lad. Never went to school. Be honest, never went to school. My dad said, "I'll build you a pigeon loft if you go to school." Good deal, I thought. He built me a pigeon loft. I went to school for a week, I think. And had the birds, but never really raced or anything like that, because I joined the army at 17. And when you're in the army, you can't have birds. You're traveling around too much. So came out of the army at 40. Was in Salisbury. Ended up in Salisbury. Straight away, got pigeons. Straight away. I didn't mess around. I got pigeons, and just raced the normal middle distance pigeons for 3 years before everything went a bit woohoo. And yeah. So that was my introduction to UK pigeon racing, really.
So you're in Germany now. You're there 15 years, 10 years?
20 years now, Michael. 20 years, my God.
Right, so 20 years in Germany. And did you always race then when you set up home in Germany? Was it always a case of that you were racing?
No, unfortunately I couldn't. Before I only had rented accommodation, and I was in Bavaria. Would have been a lot easier for the internationals if I had have done. But I was in Bavaria, rented accommodation. Very, very difficult in Germany then to race birds from rented accommodation. So, but 10 years ago, found this house up here in the north, which I could buy. So brought the house straight away, built a pigeon loft. I hadn't even decorated the house. My wife was not very happy, I have to say. Hadn't decorated the house. We still had boxes in there, and I was out in the garden building a pigeon loft. No, yeah, she's happy now, but yeah, that was a rough time. But I got straight into it.
So
Couldn't wait.
when you started up in Germany, then was it a case of that? Right, I'm going for the internationals, or let's see how this goes first, or what way did that work for you?
I've always wanted to race Barcelona. It's been a dream as a child. Going to win Barcelona. I'm going to win Barcelona. Easy. That's not a problem. So it's always been at the back of the mind. You know, I've got to win Barcelona. But it really, the first 2 years, I just had the normal program pigeons. I even brought pigeons from Luella, Mazzarella, or whatever his name was. Got them sent over from England. Cost me an arm and a leg. Get them sent over from England. Rubbish. I brought myself some rubbish. Didn't achieve anything. Won every young bird race. That wasn't a problem. I could do young birds coming out my ear holes, but I couldn't win anything in the middle distance anyway. But I couldn't concentrate on middle distance because this was still nagging. Barcelona, got to do it. So I put the feelers out and started trying to speak to German people, which when you don't speak very good German, which I didn't then, wasn't easy. But I put a couple of feelers out and got lucky. Got a contact from a man, Herbert Mulders, in the south of Germany, who flies all the internationals and sells his pigeons in China and everywhere else. Said to me, if you're going to do that kind of distance, you're going to need hard birds. Brackhorse pigeons are the birds to do it. I'll send you some. I thought, okay, you know, got to try it. Managed to find this little club that does the races from France. Joined the club, started racing. Very, very good first season I had, I have to say. It was 2 years later, of course, because the birds had to be 3 years old before I could really do anything. But the first season had a fantastic feeling.
What year are we talking here? How long ago are you talking now?
2013 was my first long distance races.
So
had the birds in 2011.
So you had the birds from 2011 as old birds. You bred around the young birds 11 and 12 and 13. You probably raced them short racing anyway, just to give them some.
Yeah, just carried on racing all the short races.
And at what point did that change come for you? Was it 2013 when you went into these bigger races?
Yeah, when I started the longer distance races, that's when everything started to click. Really, I changed the way I did everything because I was always a very, very lazy pigeon fancier. Now, this is going to sound a bit funny, really. I didn't clean my loft out every day. You were lucky if I cleaned my loft out once a month. Didn't really see the birds, didn't really do much with the birds, just expected them to do every week what I was asking of them. Started in the long distance, and the first race, absolute disaster. Put 10 birds in, got one. Eventually, I think it was 6 days later or so, and I was like, oh my God, what can I do? So, as everybody does, I contacted the guy that had won the race, or the guys that were winning the races, and spoke to them. And the thing that came across to me was they had complete control over what their birds were doing and how they were doing it. And they knew every single bird individually. And I said, well, how is that possible? Some of them had 30, 40 birds. How can you know all your birds like that? But now I can go in my loft and I can tell you every single bird, because I do exactly the same as what they told me to do, which was go to the loft every day, clean the loft every day, work with the birds every day, talk to the birds every day. Changed the way I do things and the way the birds flew. And since then, I really have not looked back. It's just got better and better.
Right. So you got the boards, you had your first races, you learned very fast by the sounds of it.
Yeah, very.
So when it comes down to the race methods you use and how you race your boards, did you talk to anybody about how to race them or what systems you were going to use? Do you race your young birds now, or do you just leave them alone to mature like a lot of the long distance fanciers do?
Yeah, I mean, the system I use now is really developed since 2013. I've always, first of all, looked at the literature and spoken to the people around me, which I did then as well. And they were all saying for the distance, you have to pair your birds up. They have to be on 6-day-old babies or 10-day eggs or all the different systems that are there. I did try it, but I couldn't control the birds. The birds were coming, okay, but they weren't winning and they weren't under control, under my control. Most pigeon fanciers will know when your birds are sitting on eggs, they will come into form, or on babies, they will come into form, but trying to get the cocks to fly or trying to get the hens to fly when they've got their nest there is not as easy. Widowwood is far more easier to control your birds. So I looked at the Widowwood system, but I can't just fly cocks. Hens, for me, are a really good source of long distance racing. So I have to race the hens as well. So I looked at all the different systems to race hens and cocks on the Widowwood, or, as is now everybody does, the roundabout system. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's absolutely outstanding because you can do everything with every single bird. My cocks go out in the morning, they'll fly for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour sometimes, depends on what time of year we're at. I get them in, the hens go out, or vice versa. I think it's just so much easier to do that than trying to on nests and all the rest of it. And the motivation for a hen or a cock to come back to the hen or a cock is, for me, far greater than a baby. The young birds, Michael, yes, every one of my young birds has to race. It has to go in that truck 5 times. I don't care whether they win. I don't care what they do. I don't even care if they take 3 days to come back from 100 kilometers. It doesn't bother me. They have to go in that truck and they have to experience what it's like to be in a race. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason they do that.
And what distance would that be out to?
That goes out to 320 k, so 180, 200 miles.
That's not bad. That's not a bad one. So, you know, it's always been a childhood dream to send your birds to Barcelona and eventually get them. And you've obviously been on that road for the last few years. I know you sent to Barcelona last year, didn't this year because of the heat. But had you sent previously to last year, or?
I've sent twice now to Barcelona. First one, when I sent one bird, didn't see a feather. Didn't see a feather. Talk about disappointed. I mean, I'd only sent one, so you know the chances of getting it back at 1,000 miles was going to be hard anyway. But I had managed to get 6 people from around me, I say around me, within 150 miles of me, to send with me. So I had 6 birds going to Barcelona from our area. And after 9 days, 2 people had birds back. That was enough for me to say, we can do this. You know, it's possible. If he can get it in 9 days, right weather, right wind, right bird, I can do it. I can do it. It's possible. So sent another one. Actually, I only sent one again, but sent another one. Lo and behold, got her back in 6 days. I was blown away. Fantastic. What a pigeon. Yeah. That was the biggest, bestest feeling I think I've had in pigeon racing. When I saw that bird, I thought, is that? Yes, it is. It's her. Yeah. So there you go. That's why I got Barcelona, but couldn't do it this year, like you said. Just too hot. I couldn't do that to my birds this year. Mm-hmm. Too hot for them.
So we've gone through quite a lot there in our little space of time. You mentioned a pigeon there, 82. Well, you had a little smirk on your face there when you mentioned it. Yeah. Come on, spill the beans.
Yeah, I just think it's a prime example how you can never really judge a pigeon, especially not by 1 or 2 performances. The 82 was on that the third 550 race, He hadn't been on the other ones, so I sent him on the 550 because he was looking good. He'd been racing really well in the program, not winning anything, but he was always coming in the program, and he looked okay. So I thought, well, I'll give you the go. Sent him on the 550, and like I say, he was the last bird back, and I'm pretty sure it was nearly a week before he even came back. Had him in the hand, this green pigeon. He was totally out. He was out. I thought that's probably the end of the racing season for you. You're done. You're obviously not got any distance in you. You'll have to stay and do the program. So he had 2 weeks off, and then I sent him on the program. He was looking good. He was really looking good after 2 weeks. I thought, you recovered really well, mate. That's not bad. So I sent him on the program. It was my first bird back. It was only 350 miles or something like that. It wasn't far. Excuse me.
Only
350 miles, first bird back. Thought, yeah, okay, looking good. Sent him on the next race, so a week later, first bird back. It was the same distance, 350, 400 miles. It wasn't far. I thought, well, he was looking fantastic. He was top. He was coming every time. So I thought, okay, well, you're going to have to go on the distance, mate. Going to have to give you another go. So I sent him on the distance. Yeah. At London, yeah. Second bird back to me on 600 miles. Absolutely fit as a fiddle when he flew in, as if he hadn't done anything. And I thought, yeah, you learnt, mate. That first one must have scared him or hurt him so much that he worked out what he has to do when it's a distance. Oh, excuse me. So blew the rust out of him on that first 550. Got his head back in order on these short 350, 400 mile races, and then powered home on 600. So it just goes to show you, even if they don't look like they can do it, if they're fit and you get them on the right day, they can do it. They can.
You actually mentioned something there that I haven't heard you say before about sending them still with your federation races, the boards that aren't going to these other races. And do you do that with the rest of the boards? Do they still go? So if you're only sending 2- and 3-year-olds to the longer races, do your yearlings then race the federation program as it was?
Yeah. All my yearlings, they have their own separate loft. They're on the roundabout system exactly the same as the long distance birds, but they have to do, we have a race program of 12 races. They go every week. There is no excuses. There is no, you can't do it or this, they have to do it, and they have to. I don't care whether they win, lose, take a week, like I said before with the young birds. It's the same. They're not there. I'm not there to win the federation races and all the rest of it. I just need them to learn. That's what it's all about, learning. In fact, I would have to say, Michael, I'm probably quite happy when one has had a day or 2 out. If they don't come back for a day or 2, they've learned something. They've got to learn to fend for themselves out there, because 1,000 miles, they're not going to do that in a day. So they've got to be able to go in the field and get what they need.
So how many yearlings would you be dealing with then? Would you have, like, so you mentioned there you were playing with 20, 25 odd older boards for the distances. Would it be the same number of yearlings? Would it be more yearlings? Would your losses be down? How would they work?
Okay, I started off this year with 42 yearlings. Hens, I've lost 2. There was 24 hens. I've lost 2 hens. They've raced phenomenally this year, or trained phenomenally this year. Cocks, however, I had 20 cocks, and I've only got 8 there. Can't explain it. Why this year I've lost all them cocks? Cannot explain it. Normally I don't lose birds at all. Very, very rare. But this year, 8 cocks are gone. So going to have a difficult time next year when I put them in the long distance loft, because they're going to have too many hens. Maybe.
That could create a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, where are you going from here? Like, so, we've kind of talked about where you've come from, where your boards are from. We have a bit of background. What's the overall plan now? Like, where are you going with this? Because I'm assuming that Barcelona is still on the cards, and I'm assuming you're looking at trying to get them in better time than 6 days. you know, you put up a video. Actually, let's talk about a bit before we go on to that. Let's talk about the feed system. So you put up a video there a couple of days ago with your feed system. So maybe just talk through that a bit here now. I know it's not very visual without the food in front of you, but maybe you could just give everybody a flavour as to what you're talking about. And if you want to see what he's talking about, it's on his Facebook page.
Yeah, the feed system it's got to be one of the most important things for long distance pigeon racing. Of course, the blood from the bird and that he can do the long distance is there, but if you don't give him the fuel in order to keep going, he's not going to do it. So the feed is extremely important, and that is the one thing that I have developed over the last since 2013. It's slowly got to the point now where I am so happy with the feed system. I know exactly when I give them what I give them, which I'll explain in a sec, they have enough fuel to do 1,000 miles. They can do it. So it's an extremely simple system. This is what I said on the Facebook video, extremely simple. It's a basic widow mix. It doesn't really matter what firm, what widow mix it is, but a basic racing widow mix with everything in it, the maize in it, the beans in it, and everything else. They get really basic. But that is 50% of the food intake. The other 50% is hemp, peanuts, and sunflower hearts. That is all mixed together, but they're not given as much as they want, as most people would think. You know, I do feed in a trough, but it's not just carry on eating all day. They've got 10 to 15 minutes, I would say 10 minutes, but 10 to 15 minutes to eat what's in there. There was a comment actually on my Facebook page, and it made a bit of sense, I have to say. Somebody said, would it not be easier to feed them the peanuts separately? Because pigeons will tend to go for peanuts first before they do anything else. That is very true. They love peanuts. However, I have found that because of the 10-minute time gap that they've got to eat, they haven't got time to just pick out, because pigeons know what they need. So they don't just pick out the peanuts. They go straight away for the peanuts, but they get them down as quick as can. And then the trough is normally empty at the end. So they've eaten everything. And I can control that by watching what they do. I do mix supplements with nearly every day. There is something in there, whether it be herbs, whether it be an extra probiotic. There are so many, and I have mentioned them on my other video. They do get something every day. Oils, I use peanut oil, because I've looked at all the different oils that you can buy for the pigeons. Don't see any difference to just going down the shop and getting peanut oil for €3.50. Yep. Don't see the point in changing it. So I use that. They like peanuts, so peanut oil as well. And yeah, so that's how they get it, and that's what they get.
Wow. So, so you've had as you've said yourself, a pretty good racing season this year. Pretty good racing season. Yeah. You know, I would say exceptional for the distances you're flying on such a regular basis. So you and I have been talking, and we know that a lot of people are asking for your boards now. So yeah, maybe we could, I don't know, tell people what's actually going to happen now over the next 6 months and on from there. You know, what we're going to do. So I'll let you explain what's actually going to happen.
Okay. Yeah, there's been an awful lot of interest in not just the how I do it, but with the material that I do it, and how can we get these birds into the fancy in the UK. It's not that simple. I do live on the far edge of Germany. It's not like I can, and we have tried this, by the way, we have tried ringing up walkers and saying, can you pick up some birds? Doesn't happen. They don't come here. So it's very difficult to get the birds transported across, but we have found a way. But instead of letting the fancy having to pay, not just for the birds, but also pay for the transport, we've come up with a system where what I'm going to do is I'm going to send direct children from all of my marathon pigeons this year to Michael in Safe Haven Lofts in Ireland. He's going to have I think it'll work out 40 direct children from my best marathon pigeons. Everything that's done it is producing babies and going to Michael. So Michael's going to be sat there with probably 40 direct children from me, available to anybody that wants to buy a few kits next year. It's the easiest way, I think. Michael has it all there. He knows what he's doing with the birds, so he'll breed them, and anybody that wants them just needs to give Michael a quick call.
Or David.
Telephone, yeah, email, whatever.
Yeah.
The only thing is, he might have 40 pairs, but that still gives a limited amount of kits for next year. So, yeah, that's the future.
So it's exciting. It's exciting for me. I'm going to have Dandy Lofts bracket boards at Safe Haven Lofts. David and I have discussed this. David is happy to say that the boards will be sold €500 for kits of 6. Already there are orders in for 5 kits. Am I right? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And there will be odds and ends out of the kits left over, and any odds and ends, if somebody doesn't want 5 or 6 rather, if somebody doesn't want 6, they're going to be €100 each. The money doesn't come to me. The money will be going directly to David. Will be paid through his PayPal directly to him. That's the system we're after setting up. And then anybody in the UK and Ireland, when it comes to the Irish boards anyway, if anybody wants them in Ireland, it's as simple as come up and collect them with me. I'll meet you somewhere. We can organise that. That's not an issue. Any of the UK boys, it's just arrange transport to the UK the same way we do any other. Anything else, and it will be walkers, I suppose. They're probably the best ones to be using at the moment. So exciting times ahead. So David, the plans for next year. What's it? So we're just gonna. That's just a little bit of a taste of what's going to come. And we're actually going to do a few. David is going to do a few videos of some of the parents of the boards that will be coming over. So you'll all have a heads up of what's coming. Okay. So that aside, now, just before we finish off, what's next year, David? What's the plan?
Okay, before I go to the next, I just want to say to anybody that decides they want to have my birds there, if you have a question about anything on my system or anything that I do with my birds to enable you to race the birds in the same manner, just let me know. I'm on Facebook, so just let me know and I'll answer as many questions as I can.
Well, that's
before you
go, that's a great offer. So you're not only getting the boards, you're going to get the knowledge of the man who has raced the boards the way he's raced them. That's a fantastic offer.
Yeah, I got no secrets. I'll tell everybody exactly what I do. I don't have a problem with that. Next year, Barcelona, as long as the weather stays, it'll probably be early, like COVID-19 messed it up because it put it back another month and it's just too hot. If they'd have done it early enough, I could have sent, but definitely Barcelona. I'm also looking at Narbonne for the end of the season because that's 1,400 kilometers. What's that? 900 miles to me. So I'm looking at doing that. I did that 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. Lovely bird came back, Grizzle. He did that, but 7 days. You know, got to improve. Got to get on the prize list. And as many internationals as I can afford to drive to. But at the end of the day, it does come down to, time and money to get there to do the internationals. Yeah. If I can get myself on 4 internationals, then I get myself on 4 internationals. And I'm hoping to get some good results as well, not just get the birds back, but get the birds back and get some positions. Yeah. And of course, the normal long distance racing with my club, I shall do the Paris and the London and all the rest, 500 and 600 races to build up the birds for the internationals. So I'm excited.
That's going to be phenomenal. That will be absolutely phenomenal next year. So I suppose we're going to kind of wrap it up now. Is there anything you want to add to this, a little tip or something like that, kind of to finish it off, for anybody who has watched to this point, something that you haven't said already or done already?
I have actually said nearly everything, but the one thing is it's like I started off to say, when I first started this long distance, I was a lazy fancier. And I really am convinced that as long as I do more than what anybody else wants to do or anybody else is prepared to do, the birds will be successful. If you sit back and expect the birds to do it, they're not going to do it. You've got to work the birds, and that means you've got to work. There is no way around it, I don't think.
So it's that old adage, you get out what you put in.
Exactly, Michael. You get out what you put in, and if you don't put it in, it doesn't matter how good the birds are; they're not coming.
No.
You're asking these birds to do a lot. So
why shouldn't you have to do a lot to get them there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Look, lads. I have to say thank you, David, for taking part in this little experiment. I've never done an interview internationally, so this is a new one for me. Through my work, I've been using Zoom quite a lot, so I thought I'd give it a go with this and see how it worked out. And actually, I'd say it's worked out quite well. So look, David, I'm going to wish you the best of luck for next season. You and I will definitely be talking over the next coming days, anyway, and weeks, as we have been. For anybody who wants to get in contact with David or myself for the boards, please feel free to do. Payments, again, will be going directly to David. And over the coming weeks and probably month or so, David will be putting up videos of the boards that will be being the parents of the boards, a lot of the boards that will be sent over here to me. And the aim then next year with selling these kits is that everybody is getting grandchildren of the performance pigeons, the ones that have done these distances, and then they may also get a half brother or a half sister of some of those boards as well that have done the distance. That's the plan anyway ongoing. So, David, I'll say thank you for doing this. It's been a pleasure. And so look, we'll be in contact. Hopefully it will be well received. And as David has said, he's offered for anybody who wants to, he can pick his brain. So yeah, onwards and upwards, onwards and upwards. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael.
Have a good day, gents. David, I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.